Hello, welcome back to The Picture Show. I'm your host, Adam Stampley, and joining me today is Sarah Patterson, and we will be discussing the latest family drama in space, Ad Astra, starring Brad Pitt and Tommy Lee Jones. Let's take a look at the trailer.
I do what I do because of my dad. He gave his life for the pursuit of knowledge. Because up there is where our story's going to be told.
This is a top-secret psychological evaluation. Please describe your current emotional state.
I'm steady, calm, ready to do my job to the best of my abilities. I will remain calm. I will remain focused.
You look just like your dad there.
He was the first man to the outer solar system. He was a pioneer. But there was much more to him than that.
Please state your mission objective.
I am attempting to stop an uncontrolled antimatter reaction which threatens our entire solar system.
We're approaching Mars.
Spacecom believes my father is responsible.
We're doing big things up here, real big.
What did he find out there in the abyss?
The enemy up here is not a person or a thing. It's the endless void.
The world awaits our discovery, my son.
All right, welcome back. Once again, we're talking about Ad Astra. It was directed by James Gray, who you're more familiar with than I am. What's kind of some of his other work?
Okay, so not particularly James Gray that I'm familiar with, but Plan B is Brad Pitt's production company that he owns, and so the production company itself has done a lot of really popular movies like Troy and The Time Traveler's Wife.
That's a good movie.
World War Z, all movies that are very hit different spots. Like obviously World War Z is like an action zombie movie, and Troy is like a period piece, but both of them are really good in their own aspects. So I feel like when you're going into this movie knowing that that production company worked on it, you definitely have a standard set for you, and you definitely are like, this movie's got to be good, right?
Right, I mean, it's not their first time.
Right, and so the one thing I do know about the director is this is actually James Gray's largest budget film, and even though it was the largest budget film, James Gray made a really big point in this movie that he wanted to know how to tell a story with using the least amount of CGI. So the whole point of the movie was to like be like this emotional feel and this space experience, but he wanted it to feel really real. Mm-hmm. So if you go through the movie, other than like the moments where they're outside in space, everything else is very like close and personal, very like a lot of like tight shots on the character, very serious moments, because this movie is actually more psychological and about like the psyche than space, even though it's in space. So that was like an interesting concept, because most space movies go all out with the CGI, and this one's whole purpose was to try to stray away from that. So fun fact.
And speaking of Brad Pitt, we have Brad Pitt, Tommy Lee Jones, Donald Sutherland, and Liv Tyler, which is such a what a mashup of amazing actors all in one movie.
Over the place. Brad Pitt's performance was pretty excellent in this movie. despite the fact I know I've read some critic reviews saying that, in over 50% of the movie, he's in a space helmet, and you can only do so much acting in a space helmet.
Right.
And I can see where they're coming from, but Brad Pitt's an amazing actor, and he pulls it off.
Yeah, because he gives so much presence. Like, you just feel him there. Like, even in a spacesuit, he could be on the moon fighting aliens. You just feel like
and his
personality comes through. Yeah.
And so the other name that we mentioned was Tommy Lee Jones. He is, he is seen in the movie, but he is not primarily interacted with until the end. Mm-hmm. And he gives a really great performance at the end. He does crazy in a very subtle, nice way. And then the other really big name that I was really looking forward to in this movie was Liv Tyler. She's famous for playing Arwen from Lord of the Rings, and she's had a bunch of other famous roles. But she was not in it as much as I like. She was a very small side character, and I'm glad she was in it, but I really would have loved to see more, but that wasn't the main focus of the movie.
Right. So speaking of the story, it's obviously a father and son story, which we've had in space before, like classic examples like a Star Wars or different things of that nature. But this one felt so different in that it was like the ending made sense, but it was also really sad and something you weren't really expecting with the sacrifices made in the very end. But before we get into the end, let's talk about some of your favorite things with the story.
So there's a bunch of really great things that they did do with the story. This movie, again, I mentioned earlier that the director wanted this to feel very real. So in this time, when you open the movie, it starts out with, this is in the near future. But in this near future, we're also traveling all the way to Mars. So it's far enough in the future that we're traveling to Mars, but it's still closer to us. So like in one of the scenes, like just a little tidbit, they're in a space station on the moon, and the moon has a subway in it. So like...
Right.
I know that's probably like product placement, but it also puts it very close to home because, you're on the moon, but hey, there's a franchise that we all know and it's still around. So that's how they really kind of pull you in, like this is in the near future. And so they do a lot of scenarios. So if we were able to travel to the moon and travel to Mars, what are some of the problems that we would encounter? And so whenever they go to the moon in the movie, it's a borderless area. So in a borderless area, what are problems that you have to deal with?
Right.
Space pirates!
That makes sense.
So they do good to add that in. So it's kind of creating that world around you. And then there's another part in the story plot where they're traveling through space and they get a distress call. And they go and they answer it, and they get inside this other spacecraft, and it's a scientific research spacecraft. And this is where you're expecting like an alien or something to pop out at you, and you're like, what's going to happen? This whole movie's about finding intelligent life. And in reality, when you get there, it's a genetically mutated monkey. Mm-hmm. And it looks like a monkey. They've just been experimenting on it, and it got loose in the space station, and it killed everybody. Not an alien, not a ship malfunction.
A normal monkey.
A normal monkey. And so, like, just little things, like, very real. They didn't go out of the way to, like, add in a bunch of science fiction. Mm-hmm. So I really liked that. Those were just, like, 2 points that kept it very real to me in the storyline that I really liked. I feel like there's one more I'm forgetting at the end. If I remember, I'll touch back on that.
So sticking with it being relatable and being able to relate to the viewers, did you find the characters to be relatable? Did you think they made grounded decisions, or did you feel like their decisions were kind of played up for Hollywood?
So not quite a decision, but in that same aspect, one thing that they did with Brad Pitt's character is in the beginning of the movie, they make a point, this general, compliments him before he gets him to go on this big mission that the movie is about. He says, you're really impressive. I've heard that your blood pressure has never gotten over 80 and that you're incredibly level-headed in high-stress situations. So, like, I feel like it was almost unnecessary. Like, they try to make Brad Pitt come off of this really cool exterior. He can stay calm. He's very disconnected from the world. He's very compartmentalized to everything, partly and due to the main plot point about his dad.
Right.
Which is really good, but I definitely feel like it... he doesn't start to become relatable until halfway through the movie because they give him this cold exterior that most characters don't have to start movies off with, which is a little unrealistic. I feel like they added it in just to added in like, hey, I'm a cool guy, my blood pressure doesn't
Yeah.
get over 80. So later on, the characters definitely get relatable, and it doesn't really focus on anyone too intensely except for Brad Pitt. So there's really not a connection to make with a bunch of the other characters other than like Tommy Lee Jones at the end.
Right. So when we get back, we'll talk more about some characters, and we'll also talk about things that we didn't so much like about this movie. And so let's take a look at our streaming and DVD picks.
For years, hackers have used pirated content as a lure to expose consumers to malware. Rogue entertainment boxes used to illegally access pirated movies and TV shows can put you at risk, but you can protect yourself. Criminals use trickery to enter into consumers' homes, explained Tom Galvin, Executive Director of the Digital Citizens Alliance, DCA. The enticement of free movies and television shows on products without a reputable company behind them, he added, creates a fertile ground for malware to spread. If it seems too good to be true, it probably is. DCA investigated these devices and found malware on them that stole usernames and passwords, probed user networks, and uploaded user data without consent. Most consumers are unaware of the security risks of plugging one of these devices into a home network. For your cyber safety, keep an eye on the devices that are brought into your home, including by your children. The lure of free pirated content can be tempting, but there is a price. Remodeling a kitchen can be easier than many realize. For one thing, instead of going through the trouble and expense of installing new custom cabinets, give your current ones a coat of paint, new pulls and knobs, or perhaps new doors. For another, you needn't change every appliance. Get a new look by changing the most used one, the sink. Those from Blanco save space on the counter and make cleaning and prepping easy. Sil granite sinks are impervious to scratches, chips, and stains, while the company's newest stainless steel material, Duranox, resists fingerprints and scratches. Little things can make a big difference. Custom stainless grids and elegant drain covers and strainers can make prep work more pleasing, cleanup less complicated, and entertaining, an event reserved for graciously accepting compliments. Grids that float inside the sink to dry dishes, elevate pots, or wash vegetables. Colanders and cutting boards that can sit on top of the sink or on a specially engineered ledge save counter space and pep up prep work. Learn more at BlancoAmerica.com.
Hey guys, this is James Farrar with today's streaming and DVD. New to Netflix, we have House of the Witch, starring Emily Batter and Darren Mann. A group of high school kids set out to play a Halloween prank in an abandoned house, but once they enter, they become victims of a demonic witch who has set her wrath upon them. Next up, we have Good Burger, starring Kel Mitchell and Kenan Thompson. Two dim-witted teenagers are forced to save the fast food restaurant they work at from going out of business, despite a new and improved burger joint opening across the street that wants to be top dog in the fast food industry. New to DVD, we have Chernobyl, starring Jared Harris and Emily Watson. Following the explosion of a nearby nuclear power plant, the people of Pyrat, Ukraine, desperately seek refuge and answers. Now exposed to toxic chemicals emitting from the nuclear plant, their lives hang in the balance. While attempting to grapple with the unthinkable chaos, men, women, and their families go to great lengths to keep imminent dangers in check. All the while, one question looms overhead: why did this happen? And finally, Spider-Man: Far From Home, starring Tom Holland and Zendaya. Our friendly neighborhood superhero decides to join his best friends Ned, MJ, and the rest of the gang on a European vacation. However, Peter's plan to leave superheroes behind is quickly scrapped when he begrudgingly agrees to help Nick Fury uncover the mystery of several elemental creatures attacking and wreaking havoc across the continent. That's it for this week's Streaming and DVD. I'm James Farrar. Now let's go back over to the picture show.
Welcome back. Again, I'm Adam Stampley, and this is Sarah Patterson. And we're still talking about Ad Astra, and we were just talking more about the characters. So we talked about Roy, and you talked about his dad. Let's talk about Helen and Thomas Pruitt, played by Ruth Negga, and Donald Sutherland, who I love, obviously, from Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and he was in The Hunger Games. So he's an actor he's a pro.
So Donald Sutherland, he is actually only in the movie just for like the beginning, and actually I can't think of who the other actor or actress.
She's like the base when I think it's on the moon. She's like the leader of the base.
Oh, she's the girl from Orange is the New Black?
I think so.
Okay, so Donald Sutherland, I was really excited to see him on screen because previously going to see the movie, I didn't look into anyone else other than Liv Tyler, Tommy Lee Jones, and Brad Pitt. So I was really excited to see him being the president in Hunger Games, but he was only in the movie for about maybe 10 or 15 minutes.
That's disappointing.
It was the same thing with Liv Tyler.
Yeah, it's like you have all these amazing
This movie, guarantee you maybe 50% of this movie is like Brad Pitt's face.
Right.
And his like kind of internal monologue on the things that he's going through. But the 15 minutes he is on screen is really, really good. And if that was the Orange is the New Black actress, I recognize her because she plays Nikki. She was on screen for less than 30 seconds. So
Wow.
she was just
They really
like,
play her up in the trailer.
really?
Yeah.
Maybe it was a different person from the movie. I'm not sure.
Maybe. Well, if it didn't stick, then I guess
Yeah,
it
no.
wasn't that important.
It, just a cameo, if anything.
Yeah. So let's talk about some likes and dislikes. One of my likes is the cinematography. I talked about that before. Even just from the trailer, you can see that they thought about everything beforehand. It wasn't like, oh, I guess we'll have him do this and we'll shoot him this blowing up from this way. Like, they really planned it out to where when you're watching, you're just like, it just overcomes you.
This movie did a really good job of that. Whenever you first get done watching a movie, you're processing everything, and there's always like, oh, well, I like this, but I didn't like this, and there was that. But the first thing that I thought of as soon as the movie ended was, wow, that was really artistic.
Mm-hmm.
Because like one thing in artistic movies is they like spend a long time on shots and give like kind of moments of pauses throughout the movie, sometimes after monologue, just kind of looking over scenery for you to really like let things set in. And because this is a movie that kind of focuses on the psyche of Brad Pitt's character, it is like that. It's very artistic. It focuses on him, and you see a lot of his acting and his like facial expressions and his inner monologue. And so yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. In fact, like, I know a bunch of people that have watched it now and said that they didn't even really like the story, but it was really beautiful.
Right.
There is definitely things I didn't like about the story.
Mm-hmm. I think it's interesting for a space action movie to be so artistic and so creative, because it could have easily been like, oh, action adventure, we're on the moon and Mars.
But
they took it and they were like,
but I don't really feel like it was action.
You don't?
I don't. It was very suspense. Like the action scenes that you see, like the moon fight in the trailer, that lasts for 2 minutes on screen. They play up a lot of things, so when you get to the movie, like a lot of things that trailers do nowadays is they put some of their best parts in the trailer to hide the overlying factor of the movie, which is very much what this movie did. They put in the action sequences, and those are pretty much the only action that happens. Everything else, like I said, is very emotionally related. Mm-hmm. So, and that's to hide, again, the overall purpose of the movie, to keep it kind of mysterious.
Right, because no one's expecting like this like psychological Brad Pitt going through this like family situation that he has, like all this pressure on himself, on his family, him getting back together with his wife. So I guess they really wanted to play it up like, come see it, it's gonna be action, but then they're like, we got you here, you're going to watch some some psychological.
That was exactly what it was like. So with that being said, I would, one of the things that I did not like about the movie was, even though it does a lot of different inventive things, the overall main story plot is very linear and very predictable. I felt like I knew it was going to happen overall, but not like the little things, like the monkey. Like I didn't expect that to happen. That was new. And the very, very, very ending, I didn't expect to happen. But everything in between, you know, his dad being lost, him being an astronaut, him going into space to find his dad, and then when he finds his dad, who's been lost in space for 16 years, he, you know, has this great feeling overcome him that he wants to finally reconnect with his dad and bring him home.
Right.
Because even though in the movie we learn that Tommy Lee Jones is not the hero. Mm-hmm. He's not. It was a cover-up. And he's actually, you know, he actually went crazy and killed his crew in the pursuit to find intelligent life.
And that's so like, to imagine Tommy Lee Jones in that kind of role. Because usually he's like the hero, the nice guy.
Right. But he plays crazy very well in a very subtle way. And so with that being said, you know, I get, like, so Brad Pitt comes in and he tries to take his dad, and his dad's like, yeah, I'll go with you. But instead his dad is actually crazy, and he gets outside of the space station up there to go into Brad Pitt's spaceship, and instead he launches himself off into space.
Right.
But the key part about this whole movie is the ending. Mm-hmm. This whole movie, the reason why Tommy Lee Jones kills his crew was because when they got out there to do their research, they found out that there was no other life in the universe, that we were alone, that they couldn't find any aliens, and so his crew went crazy and wanted to go home because everything that they had wanted to do didn't exist, and Tommy Lee Jones was determined to find that.
Right.
And that was where you kind of pull in this emotional scene, because after all this, and they finally reunite, and he just can't give up his life's work. And, you know, Brad Pitt is trying to convince him, you know, this should be all the more reason for you to come home, because now you know that we're all we got. And that was like just the kind of sting in the movie, that emotional psyche that's been building up the whole time. So even though the whole story was very linear and predictable, they are able to highlight it in a way that still made it different.
So when we get back, we'll talk more about the ending and more about our overall thoughts. But until then, let's take a look at our Friday Flick Picks.
I can take a field trip around the world, even though I've never been on an airplane.
I can investigate the mysteries of the human body from the inside out.
I can see the world through the eyes of others.
I can experience what's happening today and understand what it means for tomorrow.
I can do experiments and learn to think like a scientist.
I can learn biology while I'm still learning English.
I can solve problems that I couldn't understand before.
I can dream.
I can engage.
I can build.
Touchdown. I can achieve.
I can learn.
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 Hey guys, I'm Kayla Kennedy, and this week's Friday Flick Pick is The Joker. Warner Brothers Pictures' Joker stars Oscar nominee Joaquin Phoenix in the title role, alongside Oscar winner Robert De Niro, and is directed, produced, and co-written by Oscar nominee Todd Phillips. Joker centers around an iconic arch nemesis and is an original standalone story not seen before on the big screen. Phillips' exploration of Arthur Fleck, a man disregarded by society, is not only a gritty character study but also a broader cautionary tale. Now let's take a look at the trailer.
Arthur, does it help to have someone to talk to?
My mother always tells me to smile and put on a happy face. She told me I had a purpose to bring laughter and joy to the world. Hey, stop them! Is it just me? Or is it getting crazier out there?
Smile, though your heart is aching. Smile, even though it's breaking. When there are clouds in the sky, you'll get by. If you smile to your fear and sorrow, smile, and maybe tomorrow you find that life is still worthwhile.
What's so funny?
Just
freak.
Gotham's lost its way. What kind of coward would do something that cold-blooded? Someone who hides behind a mask.
I used to think that my life was a tragedy. But now I realize it's a comedy.
Well, that's it for this week's Friday Flick Pick. I'm Kayla Kennedy. Now let's get you back to the picture show.
All right, so we were just wrapping up on Ad Astra, and so currently on IMDb, it has a rating of 7.1 out of 10. Do you feel like that's a justified rating?
This movie is no Interstellar and it's no Martian. It did not hit you like those movies, but it still hit you, and it's still really good, and I do think it deserves that rating. It was a different kind of movie that kind of set a new bar for space movies.
Oh, for sure.
So,
and for Brad Pitt's career, just overall longevity, I think it gave a different side of him. I was kind of like, oh, okay.
His versatility is really incredible.
Yeah, because he kind of fell off the map for a while, but now he's coming back.
He's probably just working on his production company, Plan B.
And I mean, it's been working out well for him. All right, well, that's going to do it for this picture show. For Sarah Patterson, I'm Adam Stampley, and we'll see you here again next week when we discuss Joker.